All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Talk the Ting. Tonight we'll be having a special episode where we'll be discussing a few of the events that have happened in the past couple weeks. I guess I should say a month and over the last few years and decades. How does it affect us as Caribbean Americans? I guess you could say. And what's our opinion on all of what's going on? How do we feel about what's going on, and what are some of the steps that we feel could be taken to help deal with these issues that we face as Black people in America, right? So tonight I have with me my co-host Hadley Joseph. We have one of our other co-hosts, Mr. Rajiv Wallace, with us tonight. Um, and we'll be having a frank conversation. We do want to have the people participate tonight. We want if anybody has anything that they feel like they want to share, any experiences that they want to share, if anybody has been to any of the protests and they want to talk about that, if anybody has any instances where they had any run-ins with the police, where they feel like they want to share, that and how that went, and how they maybe avoided any potential issues with the police or anything like that. You guys can share that with us tonight. If you do want to share, if you do want to come on with us, you're welcome to. You just send us a message, whether through our Facebook page or through the comments, and we will facilitate that with you to try to come on to the Zoom call if you actually are interested in doing that. All right. So with that said, I'll start off with Hadley, and then he'll start off, what his thoughts on everything that's going on. I know Hadley, I know you were fairly close to the funeral of the young man who lost his life, unfortunately. So you could, speak about that and the experience of being so close to all of the action and stuff like that.
Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome back to, as we said, a special episode of Talk the Ting. Um, I had no idea that Mr. Floyd George was from the current city that I live in right now. The entire time, the news broadcast was he was raised in Texas and he moved to Minneapolis for better opportunity at work and stuff like that. And I only found out yesterday that from my boss, yo, you guys, we have to leave the office at 3 because the funeral is tomorrow. And then I stepped out of the building and there was a whole bunch of, army people and there was FBI. I understood all over the city. And then I found out, yeah, he's from here. And the funeral ceremony was actually just 18 minutes drive away from my house. I did not go. I wanted to go, but with the whole idea of COVID-19 and from the videos of somebody that I saw that I knew who went, I thought it was best that I stay. But there's a real tension in the city of Fayetteville, especially somebody like me who is currently working at City Hall, which is the place that people would go to protest. This is the government building in the city of Fayetteville. It was very tense, and I heard a few people talk, and I think, quite frankly, people are just, especially members of the Black community, I think they are just tired. I mean, I think some of them are even tired of saying Black Lives Matter. It's like, how many times do you have to say Black Lives Matter for Black lives to really matter? And it's just sad. It's Apart from that, it's pretty quiet because I think people in the area, they know what's going on right now, and it's just a hard time for a lot of people, especially in Fayetteville, knowing that he was from there, he was born there, raised elsewhere, and I just wish all this would stop. To be quite honest, I don't know. I just wish it could stop, man.
Good evening, everybody. Um, well, first time on the camera for the show. So yeah, I mean, it's tough times, it's tense times, but it's very necessary times. And sometimes I'm a firm believer in the notion that for a thing to change, or for people to feel something deep enough for it to change, it has to hit somehow. Like it has to bring out some like harsh emotion. So for the people who are of color and still in denial, for the black people who are still in denial, if what is going on is making you uncomfortable, then it's doing a good thing. Because if it's making you uncomfortable, then you are coming closer and closer to being more aware of what is going on. And for the people who are not of color, for the white brothers and sisters out there, if it hurts to watch some of these things, then we get in somewhere, because it should hurt. Like it should. You shouldn't feel normal when you see what's going on, when you feel what's going on. And it's very easy to focus on the looting and talk about people shouldn't be being violent, and people shouldn't be breaking down stuff, but let's not lose focus on what like the real issue is. Like there's only so much you can back people into a corner and tell them that they are nothing, and then still expect them to come to you expect them to act with what you call respect. But for how long have we been being treated without respect? Like we've tried everything. Like black people have tried everything in America, and a lot of the time, for me personally, it took me a while to understand what it is to be black in America and to be black from America. And while I can say I see it a lot more clearly than when I just came to America, I will say that I probably still won't even know how bad it really is for a lot of people, especially people who were born and raised here. Because I cannot imagine what it's like when to be black, and for somebody to tell you, go back where you came from, or you don't belong here, or make you feel like as if you don't belong in America, when this is where you were born, this is your home, and somebody's trying to tell you that you don't deserve like your birthright. And you see people, walking nice dogs and all these kinds of things, and people treating animals better than they treat you as a human being. And that
Yep.
that's ridiculous. Like in 2020, like that is rough. And I'm happy now that, well, I hope now that it's not just like a facade, and that we actually come into to realize like how serious this thing is, because we do so many things unconsciously that we shouldn't have to do. I was looking up trips to Europe the other day, and I was part of looking up trips to Europe. I was looking up which places would be comfortable for me, like as a black person. Like, why do I have to do that? Why is that? Why is
Right.
that necessary? Like, am
Yep.
I am I not a human being too? So I'm glad that these things are happening the way they're happening now, and I'm glad that it hurts. And for the people outside of America who are also like very aware, let's while it is true that George Floyd and what is happening in America is part of the focus right now, let us not forget that this is not something that only happens in America. You know, police brutality, police, unfairness, police treatment of people because they look a certain way happens everywhere. And, maybe we'll get to that later down in the conversation, but we don't have to go for the Dominican listeners, we don't have to go far to see the effects of those things. And maybe we'll get into that later on in the conversation, but I'll just kick it off. That's my beginning thoughts.
Yeah, because I mean, my whole thing of thinking about it is when I first moved here in 2007. I remember specifically a few people who I went to school with, telling me that, hey man, racism and all these things, and like coming from the Caribbean is like,
We don't know
we
about
hear,
that.
like you're hearing about it, but in your mind you're like, oh no, black people are lazy or this and that, and it's like you kind of buying into that kind of, rhetoric, I guess I could say. But, the more and more you live here, and, one of the things that I always thought was, I want to have kids one day, right? So, God blessed me with a son about a year ago. And I always felt like, oh, if I have a kid, then I'll be scared for my kid. I'll be scared, like, when he grow up, if he has to go through all of this. But, over the last few weeks, is like, I literally was thinking, like, I should be scared for myself because, you know, it's very possible that I could go to work and not come home because of, some foolishness. I've had a lot of, I wouldn't say run-ins, but, I've been driving for the last 12 years that I've been here. And, I've been pulled over so many times. And to be quite honest, I cannot say that there was one particular time that I felt like I was pulled over. It was specifically because I was black. But there were a couple of times that it definitely felt like that, because like there was no other reason for me to be pulled over. It's just, I mean, I have stories for days about those kind of things. And it's just sad, it's sad that, I remember I remember, I mean, I'll tell you one story. I remember once I was in Dominica, it was Creole Day. So, that back then, we used to go to town with little backpacks on our back. Everybody used to have a little backpack. I guess people used to figure like if you have a backpack, the guys wouldn't bother you because they feel like you might have something in there to
Yeah.
defend yourself. So, always have like a backpack. So one time, we were standing on the bus stop, waiting for the bus to come down. So we called the bus driver. He said, "Oh, I'm coming down. I'll be by DBS there. Anybody who knows the Granby bus stop, right? So by DBS. So we leave in and we decide to walk up like to that road where Neil and them live, right? Those Karam people, right on the corner there. So we turn as soon as we turn there, the police come. They pull us over. They stopped us. The police pushed me up against the wall. I could never forget this. That was the only time a police ever manhandled me, and I said to myself, "The life of crime is not for me, man. I can't do it." you know. And I was thinking the other day. I say, man, I go to work, I pay my taxes, I do everything that I'm supposed to do, but I still don't feel safe. I still don't feel safe where I can leave my house and be sure that okay, if I do get pulled over, maybe I am doing something that I'm not supposed to do, but is it the police officer job to be judge, jury, and executioner at that point, or is it his job to get me in front of a judge? So
Exactly.
it's like, and there have been times in the past where I have argued with police and said, well, why you pull me over and all of that. And then, every time you bring up these conversations, the first thing that a lot of people who are not black, they tell you is, well, people shouldn't be resisting. Well, resisting or not, that doesn't mean a guy has to lose his life if there's three police officers sitting on him and telling him to stand up. Like, if you sitting on somebody, how are they gonna stand up? That's just common sense. And I feel like with this current situation with George Floyd, it's almost like this has just been, the last straw. Like and this one was just far blatant. Like so now it's just like people are just fed up, and it's really unfortunate that you have all these riots and all this stuff where people, I think majority of people do want to protest peacefully, but you're always going to have a few people doing nonsense, and then obviously the few is going to speak for the masses, right? I guess you could say. But it's just sad, and all I could say is we try to remain safe every day. That's definitely one of my concerns, when I leave my house, making sure that I have my registration, my insurance, although I know I have all these things. But recently, as soon as these things started happening, I had to go back and make sure all my stuff is current and put my license and my registration on my visor on top, so that I'm not reaching for something, like all these little things that you have to think about could be the difference between you know losing your life. So that's just some of the thoughts that I have. I don't know what Hadley has.
Um, I moved here in 2012, and for me, even while I was here, I really still didn't understand what it means to be black in America. I think us immigrants moving to the United States, we sort of get here with, I wouldn't say it's a luxury, but
A chip on our shoulder.
yeah, we come here with a chip on our shoulder, and yes, we are black in skin tone, but it's different. Like, for example, when I moved to the United States, to Maryland, my first friend, my first American born friend that I made was a white girl. Up to today, she and I are very good friends. She calls me brother, I call her sister. And the reason why I became friends with her is because even if I was black at an HBCU, which is an historically black university, the African Americans still looked at me as not being one of them. And she was white, so I was an international student and white, so we're basically the outsiders. And I made friends with a white person, and majority of my friends my first semester were white. And to me, I was like, I don't see an issue. It only hit me when in 2014 or 2015, when Freddie Gray was killed in Baltimore, to really understand what it was, because I was kind of sheltered. I lived on campus. I didn't really go off campus, like everything I did was on campus. It only hit me when I started living off campus, and I started, I was walking to the bus stop and a cop car would pass, and sometimes you don't want to do it, but you still lock eyes with a cop. And if it's a black cop, then you're a little bit more at ease. But if it's a white cop, you feel like he's gonna tell you something, and it shouldn't be that way. But it's only because of what's happened in the past,
And
and I
I not to
live.
cut you off, but I don't even know if I feel that way, man. I mean, to be honest, like black, white, pink, yellow, orange, like it doesn't matter, Like
I guess
once I see that police car, like I just
I mean, yes, you feel that
if I could
way.
take another way, I take another way, like just to avoid them.
I know, but you feel that way because it's a cop. But sometimes, like, I lived in a predominantly black city, which is the city of Baltimore, and so I've been pulled over by white cops and black cops, and for some strange reason, when I see it's a black cop, I'm a little bit more relaxed, even if he could do the same exact thing to me if he thinks that I'm reaching for something. But for some strange reason, I feel a little bit safer with a black cop asking me for my license and registration than a white cop. And it's not that I'm racist. I'm definitely not that person, but that's just something that I experience. And the protests going on right now, like a lot of people are saying that they're looting and stuff like that. And I lived through uh I think at least two weeks protest and a riot in the city of Baltimore. And I saw so many things. And I don't want to sound controversial, but I saw with my own eyes, with with myself and a few of my other classmates, police officers breaking car windows, firefighters breaking car windows and lighting vehicles on fire. I saw it with my own eyes. I hope this doesn't get me into trouble for saying that. But what I'm saying is, for the people out there who think that it's just the protesters out there doing stuff, and then you might see a little video on Facebook where it's showing a cop doing something. It actually happens. It actually happens. And while it's not good for the protesters to end up being rioters and breaking stuff and looting, it happens. And for me, like right now, I live in a southern state, and we know what they say about the southern states. So all these things have me very much more careful than I was when I lived in Maryland, and to all my Caribbean people out there, we need to be part of this movement, because the people out there only see the color of our skin. That's all they see. They don't know that you're from Dominica. They don't know that you're from Trinidad. They don't know that you're from Jamaica. They see the color of your skin. And that's all some people need to place judgment on you. Just see the color of your skin. They don't care that you're an educated guy. They don't care that you're married with kids and a wife and stuff like that. And you're a good guy and you pay your taxes. They don't care. I feel like as long as you have that complexion, that's it, man.
And the thing is though, I don't want it to get into a police bashing thing because I'm not a hater of police.
No, no,
You
no.
know,
None of us are.
I know that we need the police, right? We need them. However, you know, like the conversation that comes up all the time with me and a lot of people is people tell me, like, a lot of white people say, well, I don't see color. Like, so when somebody tells me that personally, like, to me that's just BS, right? How can you not see color? Because when you look at somebody, the first thing you see is what they look like. Like, so now with that said, we all have our biases, right? And really how we treat people, right? After acknowledging that we have our biases is what really determines what kind of people we are. Because we could feel, okay, well, this is how I feel about generally about black people or white people or Hispanic people or Asian people, whatever it is, but you shouldn't treat them any different because they're just a human being just like you, right? So when people say things like, well, I don't see color, and listen, I always tell people, listen, put yourself in the shoes of the police, right? If you're a police officer walking up to a car, in the middle of the night, and let's say it's just you, like, you really, I mean, your life at that point, you feel like your life could be in danger, and you really maybe could be in danger. So you have to take all necessary steps to protect yourself. But however, if there was nothing that was done that was a threat, then people. I don't know. I feel like there's multiple layers to this issue, and I really don't know where we would start, but we have to. I feel like at first, as human beings, we have to acknowledge our biases, and we have to, and then from that, we have to figure out, okay, does that change how we act with certain people? And if that changes the way we act, then maybe we have to look at ourselves. But it shouldn't really change how you act because you're gonna meet a lot of people who don't look like you, who will help you out a lot more than the people that look like you. And that's just life. And you can't put everybody in one basket. But at the same time, it's the implicit biases are there, right? We all have them, and we have to acknowledge that we do have them.
But I have a question for us and those viewing. You could chime in if your answers. But it's something that I've been thinking of even prior to this conversation, and I had a conversation with somebody else. Is the question is why to this day? Why do you think that people are still racist or treat black people the way they treat black people? And again, not every white person does that, but I have a theory in my mind, but I want to hear y'all's view. Like,
Well, well,
why do you think it still happens?
well, you don't even need to have a theory for that. We just need to just go back into history. Like look at the history of where we were, not too long ago. Like it's just the other day, people were marching and was it in Selma or just the
Hmm.
other day, slavery was well, not just the other day, but just the other day we were still slaves. Like this was still, when they had the northern and the southern states, it's just the other day black people were being sold for a price, were not, worth the same as other people. They were the inferior race. So it's not even a we don't even need to have a theory. Like this is the way it is because it is how this system was designed. Like we were living in a system, we've been living in a system, or the system here has been such that if you are black, you are less than. And even when they moved away from segregation and whatnot, moving away from segregation, all of those things was just, scratching it off of a piece of paper. But what really happened in practice? Those people were still, raising their children to see that, you know, maybe those black children over there, they are criminals, they're rapists, they're whatever. People were still getting themselves into communities that they wanted to keep exclusively white or exclusively, they don't want, yes, we're not segregated anymore, but we want this portion of 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 this neighborhood for people who look like us, because that is all, like, we feel, safe. So, the start of the problem have to be with one, acknowledging the fact that the the playing field is not, we're not on a level playing
It's
field,
not
and we're
level,
not on
right?
a level playing field because presidents and governments in the past have designed it to be like that. Even when you look at the way votes and the whole electoral college thing, and you can bring in the whole theories about the census and all of that, how these are designed, and how, if you listen to a lot of political analysts and some sociologists, they will tell you that in areas where black people are poor, and these kinds of things, the level of people being able to vote is very low. So people of color, almost, they don't have a voice in the things that actually affect them, and that those things are systemic. Those things are by design. Like, those things are not even, those things are things that some of them even, like, etched into law. So people tell us, get on with it, work harder, do this, do that, but on the back end, nobody really doing anything. You swimming against the tide with no help. People just telling you, do better, get better, but they already far ahead of you, and you're already behind. A lot of the time, right now, people like people like Kanye, they eventually fall off and whatnot. But back in the day, you used to say it make a lot of, like, sense. Like, why is there a ceiling for what a black person can achieve? Whenever a black person get to a certain point, we, even us as black people, sometimes we look at our brothers and say, well, why you want to get richer? Like, why you want to get
Yeah,
better or whatnot?
yeah,
We have
yeah.
a popular Dominican caller on the radio, Blessings, and there was one time Blessings said, that is also part of our problem too. We condition us, we kind of, like, still, they've conditioned us to think that, it is okay to just want, like, the bare minimum. Like, why don't we want to be as rich as that too? Why we don't want to be a Bill Gates? Because things have been designed in such a way that people tell you, once you see you get to the level below Bill Gates, they'll tell you, that's it. That's the best you can be.
Yep,
You will
yep.
never be this Bill Gates. Bill Gates is the achievable level for those people that look like Bill Gates. But for you, you will always have to be Bill Gates' secretary or Bill Gates' assistant. And those are things that they have pounded that into us, that almost, like, in our psyche right now. Like, they beat that in to us so bad. Like, right now, like, it's those things that still, like, kind of, like affecting us, and people still don't think that, white people still don't think that this is something, like, that they have done. But we have been on a leash. We were on a leash. We were like the little dogs that they were pulling around for years. And
So
now it's now we trying to really break the chain, because the chain wasn't there physically, but it was still there.
my theory, so the theory that I have is right, because the theory that I have is, I feel like with the death of the original form of slavery, another form of slavery was born right after that. It's like, so you no longer have people in physical bondage. You could no longer tell somebody you have to do that. But I feel like the law found another way to put these people back in some form of slavery. And for me, I was thinking that one of the reasons why these things maybe still happen here is because, and we see it different back home in the Caribbean until we come here, is because the slaves in the Caribbean, we were not given our freedom, right? We were not given freedom. It wasn't something that the masters went and said, you know what, from now on, you are free to be your own person, to rule your destiny. This didn't happen with us back home. We fought for that, you know. We fought for that to the point where we own every single square foot of land back home. Every single square foot of land back home is owned by a black man. In the United States, it's different. Freedom was given, no matter how much the slaves fought. freedom was
Well,
given to
well,
them.
I think you kind of have to be careful with that though, because I mean,
No.
I think
Let
that
me.
might not be historically accurate. So let's not go too much
No.
into.
What I mean is like I just feel that maybe one of the reasons why this type of feeling towards black people happened is like, when you give somebody something and for some reason you feel that you can always take it back or they owe you. And sometimes I tend to think, and I may be wrong, but sometimes I wonder if that is not how certain people think. Like, we gave that to you, and every now and then
But
I see stuff on Facebook that kind of solidifies that trend of thought where people say that maybe if we kept them as slaves, this wouldn't be happening.
but the thing is,
You
right?
know?
So I mean, we've spoken about what it is now, and what 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 we go through and stuff. I mean, really, slavery ended in 1865, right? Officially, I guess you could say, right? But we still suffer on the mental slavery, right? So like one of the things that frustrates me a lot as a black man is we'll have situations where we will know people who look like us, who've been through certain situations. For example, quick example, we know people who maybe a few years older than us. They've went through the process of buying a house, or they went through the process of buying a car, right? And we'll go to strangers and ask them about it instead of asking our own people. Like, how do we empower our own people? How do we help our own people? Like, we have to. I've had this discussion, in my opinion, way too many times. I don't feel like we have to sit and wait for any other race to do for us. Like, we have to be ready to do for ourselves. And I feel like I'm not saying that we could do everything for ourselves, but there are some things that we could band together and do for ourselves, right? And you know, keep in mind the timelines, right? So you had slavery ended in 1865. Segregation did not end until 1954. You had people. You still have people alive today who went to fight for America, right? And then come back to America and they cannot eat in the same restaurant. They can't use the same bathroom. Like, it wasn't that long ago, right? Like Rajiv was saying. But at the same time, I feel like we have to be willing to look to help out, look for ourselves. Why is it that when we get into certain positions or certain jobs, and there are a lot of black people in high corporate jobs, right? But why are we scared of hiring the people that look like us if they're qualified to do the work, right? I feel like a lot of people are so concerned because they don't want to do that, because what if the person fails? They'll look bad, or they just don't want to be the person that hires a bad person. But guess what? It happens with every other race. White people hire people that do a terrible job all the time. But guess what? Do they stop giving their people jobs? No.
That's a good point. And yeah, we can do. There's a lot that we should do to within ourselves, like as a community. But at the same time, there's still a lot that needs to be done to enable the community. So it's two sides. So that's why also now we're seeing a lot more of that going on, and that's another good that's coming out of the situation. Right now, you see a lot of people promoting black businesses. People are publishing more information on black businesses, support black. Even if you just scroll through your Instagram timeline right now, you'll see a lot more information on how you could support the community. And maybe that is one of the things we weren't doing in the past, and maybe now it took the current happenings first to see that we need to support each other more. And then that is that, but then that's still just one side of the coin. On the other side, we still need to be treated with respect and treated fairly. And back to what you were saying about when we get into high places, and that's so true. Like, we even had that in a calypso once, like when Dice had that song, when it's so easy when you get up there to get caught up in your own affairs and you forget to pass on the baton, cast your bread upon the waters. Like, we need to work on that more than ever. Like, we need to we need to look out for each other like a lot more. Even now more than ever, we need to look out for each other because clearly, nobody else is looking out for us. I was thinking the other day, and I was like, wow, why we are really the only. It seems like as if we are the only race in the world where people just do not want us around, and like that is
Right.
that is a tough pill to swallow. Like
Roger,
what did we ever do? Like, go back to the
Roger,
travel thing. Why
Roger,
I have to look up where why do I have
Roger,
to look up how to travel?
Roger. I know for the last few years, right?
Right.
I've always said, bro. My feeling is like once you're black, you just at the bottom of the totem pole. Like everybody feels like they're better than you in some kind of way. Like just because you're black, like, and it's crazy because I don't even know what the answer is, man. But it's just, but again, my thing is, I do understand that, you know, there's stuff that has to be changed with the laws and all that, and that comes back to us educating ourselves and figuring out, how can we impact what's going on, right? I mean, for example, when Obama was going up for president, right, everybody was excited, and I mean, I don't think it would be far fetched to say that a lot of black people voted for him just because he was black,
Right.
right? But you know, it's just one of those things that always kind of trumps me. Like, you think about politics and you think about, like, even in America, everybody concerned about, the president, but there are people that are way below the president who actually do the things that impact you on a daily basis,
You
Yep.
you
but we don't
just
pay we
you
don't
you
pay any
just
attention to those, right? We
you
just care
just
about the president and the Senate and the House, and okay, great, that's good. But your local mayor is the one that controls like so much stuff that happens in your everyday life. So why are we not paying attention to that? But also, in way of information, I think that sometimes it's almost like you have to go out and get the information, because even where I live, I'll be the first to admit that I don't even know some of the people that represent me. And I've been living here for over 5 years. So, I haven't really made it a point of duty to go ahead and look for them or find out what is exactly, so that I'm guilty of that too. But I feel like, and I was listening to the President Obama and a couple of people. They had a town hall the other day, and I was listening to it, and he came on and said about, you know, the mayors are the ones who really control what happens with the police, not the federal government. So, but do we really know that? Do we really know that? Who is the mayor of New York, or who is the mayor of Newark, or whatever part of America you live? They're the ones who control all of these changes that we're asking for, right? So, but listen, there are multiple layers to these things. I feel like maybe we could go through and read some of the comments and kind of respond
We
to what some of the
we don't
people are
have any
saying.
callers. We don't have any callers.
before we go to the comments, I'd like to say one thing in terms of solutions, and Dwayne, you kind of alluded to it. I think where we actually begin, and when I say we, I mean I can't vote in the United States. The people who can actually vote, I think the most important thing right now is voting. And I I've been through two general elections here in the United States, and people get crazy excited about the presidential election. Everybody turns out for the presidential election. But then we have city managers, we have mayors, we have councilmen, we have congressmen, we have senators, we have state representatives. And it always baffles me that Maryland is a Democratic state. And I found out that the governor of Maryland is a Republican. And then we ask, but how is it that this state constantly goes for the Democratic Party, but then they elect a Republican governor? And it's simply because not everybody pays attention to that type of election. We don't care about a governor. We'll vote for president because Obama's going to be president. We vote for him. And I think that's where it begins. Apart from all the protesting and whatnot, if you vote in every single election that there is, from your city manager to the county people, to the state, to the Senate, I think that's where it all begins. And I heard somebody say on Facebook, I hope all these people who are out there running in the streets saying Black Lives Matter, I hope these people are registered to vote, you know? And I think that is step one, being registered to vote. And not just for the president, but for every other lawmaker position that is out there, you know?
But we need to make, again, just to reinforce the point, we need to make it our point of duty to find out who these people are, and not and in no other way of saying it, let's not vote against our own interests, right? You have a lot of people now who support the president, right? But they work in a union, and the president wants to get rid of unions, right?
Right.
You ask them that simple question, and they're like, okay, well, you didn't think about that. That's how you make your money, right? That's how you take care of your family, right? So, I mean, I don't know. Let me just go through the comments. I don't know if there's anybody who wants to come on. If there's anybody, you guys could message us and let us know.
Yeah,
I
give us
saw,
a call. Give us a call. We're live.
caller, you live. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I see a few people commenting, about the what we can do. One person says, um, we need to focus on stronger educational institution on our communities. One way to escape this vicious cycle. That's definitely something that we need to do. Um, Somebody asked a question about. I saw it earlier on. Let me just go through it. He says, "Do you guys think that maybe the gun culture in America is to blame, in the sense that in a country of 300 million people, there are more than twice the number of guns, so officers really don't know who's armed and who's not." Listen, that's another layer to it, man. That's another layer to it for sure. Because I remember when I went to England a few years back, we were staying by a friend, and the guy's a cop. So so he say, "Oh, I'm getting ready to go to work or whatever, whatever." So I see him ready to leave, and he has no gun. I look at him like, "What? like no gun?" He said, "Nah." He said, we're not allowed to have guns. Only like 2 or 3% of the entire police force in the UK carries a gun." And I say, "Well, you couldn't do that in America, man. In America, everybody got guns." So, it's just something different, and they have so many laws. Like, for instance, another comment we have here is, if you have a felony on your record, you can't vote, which affects more black men, right? And obviously that comes back to some of the things that we were talking about with the former presidents, with the three strike law, and the crack cocaine epidemic and all of those different
The
things.
war on
The
drugs.
war on drugs, right?
Oh,
And
the
and so
so-called war on drugs.
right, so many of our young men are locked up, right? And I know you could listen. There's so many layers to this, because now you could come back and relate all of these things to what happens in the house, because now a guy is trying to maybe make some money to take care of his kids. He gets caught. He goes to jail for 20 years. Now his son is being raised by his lady or his wife or whatever she is, by herself. And it's just a cycle that just keeps happening over and over. And
Elon
them kids,
Musk
you know
was tweeting about he was saying how now weed is big business, but people still locked up for the weed now that is big business that people making big money off of. But fellas still locked up for dime bag and all of that, still waiting for trial, still can't get bail and all of this nonsense. So now it's like now everybody celebrates, go big, buy stock in cannabis corporations over that. But everybody forget who was most affected by, getting caught with a leaf of marijuana. Like is all of these like ridiculous things.
a capitalist society, right? The point is, at some point, somebody has to capitalize on your demise. That's just how it is in this place. And listen, we need to get to the point where we're the ones capitalizing. Okay, I'm sorry to say it like that, but we need to get to the point where we are the ones capitalizing. We're tired of, we should be tired of being the ones that are always being capitalized on. All right. So, is there anybody who wants to come on? Let us know. Let us know.
Anybody want to
Uh,
share an experience? I was
Anybody?
scrolling for my Facebook on Friday and I saw a lot of accounts of personal experiences. So, let us know, come in, share. You have to be on camera if you don't
if
want
your
to, but
concern is you don't right, I was just about to say if your concern is you don't want to be on camera, you don't have to be on camera, and you could give yourself an alias, put yourself as anonymous.
Yeah.
yeah, you would.
And while we wait for that person, I have a front seat view of, sort of city government. I work in City Hall, which is where
Hadley will say on joie.
all the decisions of the city takes place. And we have commission meetings, we have council meetings, and we have to sit and we present stuff to the city council or the different commissions. And a lot of things gets passed, even when we, the planners of the city, are not 100% certain that it's something that should happen. But a lot of things happen because sometimes people just don't show up to comment or to give their point of view. So it happens where you have a commission meeting where somebody is trying to do something, somebody is trying to expand a business, and they have to come to the city for permission to expand or to start that business. And letters are sent out weeks prior to the commission meeting to every household within 3 to 500 feet of the actual location. And people come, sometimes people don't come. And then you wake up one morning and excavators moving by to either expand that business or to build that business, and people come to City Hall and complain. And at that point, then nothing can be done because your time of coming in and making your voice heard, it's past. So I just really wish that people would pay attention to every form of government and down to even in the city, because
Hadley, if the method of disseminating information is letters, and I'm not focusing too much on the letter. Hear me out. If the letter of disseminated information is A, and the meeting is on Friday, and only 5 people show up out of the 100 letters that you send, and the project is of such importance that it is going to affect the community in a large way. While it is true, you can say yes, people have a right to respond and to make these things their business. But don't you think it is a little sly on the part of the administration or of an administration to know very well that this probably, because we can only assume that it only reached the 5 people who come, for you to go ahead with the project, knowing fully well that one, it may have been controversial, two, it may have rubbed some people in the right way, and you're still gonna go ahead with it and say, oh well, we sent only a letter, but we didn't respond. Like that is,
no,
that is part
no,
of it is
because
that is a little bit of disrespect too.
not
But at the end of the day, because at the end of the day, that is another thing too. That is, at the end of the day, the institution you work for is a servant and not a king, not a boss. It's a servant.
True.
So it's not the people. It's not they working on the. They not working. The people not working for them. They working for the people. So even if it means they have to try to reach those people 10 different type of ways, that's their job and that's what they have to do. Like
okay.
It's not the people. It's not the other way around. They're not the king and they have servants. They are the servants. The people that put them there. And they're in this position to spend the people's money
all I'm doing.
because of
Rajiv,
the people.
But Rajiv, the thing is that right, and this is the problem again. Like we don't hold people accountable. We do not hold people accountable. We put people in positions to do certain things for us, and this is not just an America problem. It's a whole worldwide political problem. Politicians on a whole feel like once they get elected, that they're there as the king of the place and it's up to them. So we have to understand that they, like Rajiv said, they are there for us, right? So we have one person who wants to get on. We're gonna let them come on and see what they have to say. All right. So let's just add on. Let's just add them on.
Kola, go ahead.
Radio station Salakatava Police Slaman.
Hello, can you hear us?
Good evening. Good evening.
Hello.
So I wanted to just comment real quick because a lot of the points,
Hello?
but
Oh,
what happens when the whole black movement and everything is not necessarily over, but when it dies down, right? Dwayne made a point of saying that um, within ourselves we get to certain corporate levels, and then we have a problem in bringing our own people in to do necessarily the same thing that we're doing. There's a huge issue among us ourselves that we're not addressing first before we can address the entire picture, and that is colorism. So you're darker skinned than me, I'm lighter skinned than you, this next person, this and that. Oh, I better than this person because I light skin and I closer to white and I closer to this. That is a bigger issue than the whole black movement, in my opinion. In my opinion. And that is why we as a race will never move forward, because even under our own umbrella, we have our own faults and we're not willing to admit, work on, and move past those smaller issues before we look at the bigger issues.
that's a fair point. That's a fair point.
Good point.
I I
PA.
I I'm not sure if I agree that it's a bigger issue. I know it is a massive issue, but I think that and I think that that's something that I definitely um have seen more. Well, I don't say more, but I've seen a lot of it in the Caribbean, right? Because we don't have so many white people in, let's say, in Dominica, for instance. But you hear about shabbing and blah blah blah, and everybody likes the light skinned girl, and everybody likes the light skinned people and the dark skinned people we talk about, and but I mean, again, I think you're right. We have to kind of look at our backyard first, and then see what we have to fix before we try to tackle the bigger issue, I guess, which is with other races, I guess.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
if we cannot respect ourselves and our own umbrella and do better for ourselves, then no one else is going to give us the respect that we believe we deserve. And that's the bottom line.
I guess
yeah.
so.
Yeah, so I probably disagree to that. It's a bigger issue, but I agree that it is a
What you
big
doing?
issue, especially in our own communities, because especially growing up, people will always tell you to work in the banks and those kinds of organizations. You would have to have, in Dominica, we would say you needed to have bel couleur and chive YII. That is like, you needed to be light skinned. For the people who don't speak Creole, you needed to be light skinned and you needed to have nice hair. So if you had like, if your hair was too rough, you needed to have that permed. You needed to look a certain color, like for the banks and those kinds of things. And I mean, that was maybe a little further from our times, but maybe part of that was because of the culture of the people who ran our banks and who ran the bigger institutions in our countries. Because a lot of the times, these people were not locals. These people were people who saw things a certain place where they came from, and they were like, okay, this is not workplace appropriate. This is not whatever. So even growing up, we kind of like conditioned ourselves to think that that is what pretty means, or that is what nice means. Even little subtle things that we do with ourselves and with our own children that can have like an unknown and unplanned effect. Buying white Barbie dolls for your little black girl, and she thinks that that's like the only thing that pretty is.
maybe
Having,
at
if your
maybe at the
child can
time
only
maybe at the
see.
time Nasif only had white, my brother. Maybe Dubai.
Yeah, but if you can only, if from a very small age, all that you seeing as pretty, or all that you seeing as acceptable is a certain way, that's how you gonna like grow up to believe. I don't know the origins of that kind of thinking, but yeah, I do agree that especially like in the Caribbean society, back home, we need to be very careful with that whole, with the colorism thing. We need to be very careful with giving this value to to shabbing, to people of lighter color and people of darker color. But another thing we also need to not forget is that it just so happens that in a lot of societies in the Caribbean, it's the darker people who end up being those who are of what you call, or how I could put it, of uh uh smaller or lesser socio-economic background. And then we have to ask ourselves, why is that too?
Why is that
Because
right?
we kind of also implement those kinds of like classes within our society where we only kind of give privilege to people that look a certain way and act a certain way, and all of these things that we kind of have to work against and move away from. And it's not a
Yeah,
good sign if you have a little girl and she want to be lighter when she grow up.
Right. And that's
Um,
part of the negative stimulus that we have given ourselves based on everything else that has happened in the world. Not negating slavery and all of that, but my point is just that if we cannot break the cycle on our level alone, how can we expect to break the cycle on a national level?
I,
It's
I, I think I think
that's
I
at
think I
home.
think we can, I think we can. I think it's something that can happen simultaneously. I don't think one has to happen for the other to happen.
for
But
me,
but I think that's we could have a whole other show just on colorism.
yeah. I mean, for me, so there's this person on the live who
Uh,
big up Gabby Fran, and I am 100% with Gabby Fran. I feel like we are turning this back on us. Colorism is an issue, but I don't think colorism is the turning point. It's not that thing that we need to fix to make it better, because
It's one of.
it's
it's
one
one of.
of
It's one of.
it's
It's one of.
one of, but even I think it's one of in the Caribbean. Up here, even more than ever before, you see a lot of our black celebrities, whether they're actresses or whatnot, they are getting more on that, natural, no makeup type thing. So I don't think that colorism is, especially in the United States, I don't think colorism as big an issue as it would be in maybe a place where, like for example, no offense, my Jamaican friends in Jamaica, where you have people bleaching their skin. I don't think, if we have to speak up here in the United States, I don't think it's that much of a big issue as every other thing that we've spoken about. We keep trying, we always tend to turn it back on us. And that's, we talk about colorism, but look, I feel that that statement was kind of making us the problem all over again. And
I,
that's coming.
but hardly again. I think it's not. I don't think it's an issue that we have to ignore because it is an issue.
Definitely not. I'm
But
not saying that
I
we have
don't
to
think I
ignore
don't
it.
think that I don't think we could say, well, let's just look at ourselves, and then when we have that fixed, then we go to something else. I think it's something that we could address on both fronts.
It is something that we have to.
We have a few more people who want to get on. So let's just try to keep them coming. All right.
Yeah, I mean, we can go over
Wanna,
today's special episode.
yep.
Go ahead, caller, you live.
It's connecting. Hold on. Hello. Are we on? Hello. Hello. Hello, caller.
Go ahead, caller.
I just wanted to say that. I always wanted to say that. Hello, caller. You on? Caller. Hello. You mute. You on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yep. Can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay. Hopefully my comment is brief.
Okay.
I'm just going to make a comment about what we need to do as Black people. I think all of the issues that people are talking about are very valid, but I definitely think that we need to do a better job of understanding the history of the country that we live in. And it is important to know about not just slavery, but what slavery meant for this country. And some people did mention in the comments that it was an economic institution, and they are correct. And the effects of slavery still continue today. I respectfully disagree with people who are waiting for Black people alone to solve this problem, because the problem is ingrained in this society, which
True.
means that the people that are in power have to be the ones to change it, because you can do whatever you want, and the assumption is that Black people aren't doing anything. And we can talk about Black on Black crime, we can talk about impoverished neighborhoods. Those things are not separate issues, they are connected. And part of the reason why Black people are subjected to that in America is because of the institution that was created for them to live in poverty and to be oppressed. And when you live that way, it's going to manifest itself in the ways that you're seeing. So I don't think that we should try to say which point is better than one or what's more important to address or blame ourselves, because we are a result of the way we've been treated. And even if you are from the Caribbean, there is a distinction in the way both countries were set up when slavery did end. So I think we need to acknowledge that and do better at really learning about why we treat each other the way we do and why white people either blatantly or covertly treat us a certain way.
That was a very informative piece for me myself. Right now, I need to do a lot of reading. I'm happy for callers like you, Nicole, because you seem to be very knowledgeable on that. And that is one of the things I'll always say, that I still, I'm still like in the learning process of the whole history of black hair, because maybe to a certain extent, coming like directly from the Caribbean, like so old, like we still probably don't get some of it. So I'm glad that you're able to point out what we missing, and implore us to go deeper. So thank you
I mean, no
for that.
one likes looting. No one wants their neighborhood destroyed. No one likes that, I think. And as you stated earlier, the cops are participating in that. And again, the police department in this country, part of their job is to incite this type of behavior. Like this is historical. This is not something that's new. This is what this country was built on. It was built on aligning people by race, regardless of how much money they made. But the poor people end up suffering, and the people at the bottom of the ladder will suffer the most. And although some of us will rise above that, and from my perspective, it's usually people who come from other countries, usually Caribbean people and African people and people from Asia will come here and do better because historically they have not experienced the oppression and segregation and institutionalized racism. So they come here and they have one goal in mind, which is to be successful and do the best they can. And that is not the case for American descendants of slaves.
That is true.
So Nicole,
no, let me just say something. Nicole, real quick, you seem to be a very informed person. There was one viewer who asked if you could give some literature based on what you're saying that they could follow up on. I guess some people want to do some more reading, so you don't have to say it here. Maybe you could just
I'll just
drop it in the comments.
Absolutely.
Drop it in the comments of something that, because I would definitely want to read more up on that as well. So
yeah, there's a reason why Black people are divided. It's not just because we don't like each other. It's not just about colorism. All of those things are connected to slavery, European slavery as well as American slavery, but Americans took it to another level.
Yeah, I think so too.
And that was it. That was my comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Nicole. So with that said, so that's one thing that I listen to a lot of podcasts, right? So one of the things that I actually listen to, and actually I'll give Nicole the credit, she put me onto this, was it's a series called Seeing White. And the series it's a 13-part series where this white man goes back, and he goes back all the way from the America's original days, of when the people came from England and all of that stuff, and how did we get to where we are today with having the white, black, the Caucasoid and the Mongoloid, and all of these different things that have been put in place. What happened when the people came from Europe, and how did they deal with the Native Americans, how did they deal with that. So it's a very informative piece. I think I could put the information in the comments after we're done if anybody wants to check it out. And actually, it was very difficult for me to listen to because, it was getting me emotional sometimes and angry. Sometimes you listen to it and it just piss you off, man. It's like, I can't believe all of these things were happening. But then you could see because of all these things that happened, why we kind of are where we are today. So, to Nicole's point.
Have any other
Roger.
callers?
We had somebody else, but I think they dropped off. Let's see if we could get them back. Anybody else wants to get on? Just
Some
send
people
us a
not sure how to
message.
get on, so
Anybody wants to get on, just shoot us a message in the comments, and we'll drop the information in there. Matter of fact, I think I'll just do that right now. So if anybody wants to get on, they could get on. As you guys see, you don't have to put your face on there, and if you don't come put your video on, then nobody even sees your name. Okay, so but I think this is a good discussion for us to have. Let's see here. I'm just gonna drop this in the comments real quick.
let's see if we have any questions on the WhatsApp.
All right,
Kevin.
so I have dropped the link for the Zoom call in the comments. Anybody who wants to get on, you could click that link, and we'll let you
I have
on
a
to
point of
just
view. I got a WhatsApp
speak
message
your,
and
spit your piece.
somebody was saying with some Caribbean people, like why is it that sometimes we want to distance ourselves from being identified as African American, and if now, do we feel that now is, with what's going on, we will change from that, and this movement will help us, like, stop putting this like divide, like we not one of them.
I think the reason why some Caribbean people think that way initially, I think it eventually changes, especially with times like these. I think it's because of, like, for example, I use myself as an example. When I moved to the United States, like, I had a lot of pushback in class from my African American classmates. I remember showing a professor something, and he thought, hey, that's a good idea. I'll use that in class. And he went and he used it in class. And all the other white kids in class were like, well, white people, they were not kids in class, were like, that's helpful. And then a friend of mine who is from Jamaican heritage, she came back to me and she's like,
You have somebody else who wants to get on. So
let me just finish that.
yeah, go ahead.
They were complaining that, oh, he thinks that he's better. So I think that's one of the reasons why, because sometimes we get that treatment like, you guys are coming here to take our jobs and stuff like that. But eventually it changes when these things happen, and we eventually understand that it's not about where you're from. Most cases, it's just about the color of your skin. It's just about the color of your skin and the way you look. But I implore every Caribbean national who is now in the United States to think differently, that we are part of that movement, whether we like it or not. We are part of that situation. And with whatever that we have to offer, I think it is incumbent on us to share our voice and to be part of that movement, because we're Black.
All right, so we have a couple people who want to get on. So we're gonna, obviously he's gonna
Okay,
be
let's
first
take
in,
them one
first.
after the.
It's gonna be first in, first out. So please,
All right.
when you come on, we're gonna allow you to make your comment, and then we'll have somebody else on. All right. So we have Lucerne, who's gonna be on now. Everything is connecting.
Hi.
I'm seeing a. Go ahead, Lucerne. Sorry about that.
I think part of the issue is that going back to the call on colorism and within ourselves. I'm from the Caribbean. I'm from Dominica, like all of you on the call. Well, Dwayne, Hadley, and Raj. And when I moved here, I used to say, with slavery, it was, X amount of years ago. Get over it. But as you go ahead and as you work, it's slowly ingrained in you. There's certain things that happen. You're like, if I were white, I wouldn't go through this experience. Even now, take for example, 45 in the White House right now. If 45, if Obama was anything like 45, he would not have become president.
Facts.
That's a fact.
You
Facts.
know, it's certain things that as a black person that you have to work harder at. So even if I have never experienced racism in my 18 years in this country, I know there's certain things that I do and say that I was like, okay, you can't do this because, you know, you're looked at a certain way. Like my white coworker was like, oh, I'm going to tell them to their face, you know, we have too many meetings. And I'm like, you go ahead and say that because I know it'll be taken differently if I say it.
Exactly. You be
So
the angry black woman if you say that.
Exactly.
exactly. So it's a different thing when we come from the Caribbean. There's certain things that we don't see. Like we have colorism in the Caribbean. If you're not you know, that store on the bayfront, Nassif, you're not the Nastafan, you're not a this or that, you're light skin, you're dark skin. You know, you have those, we have that issue. But when you move here to America, it's a totally different dynamic. And in order for us to move forward, we have to acknowledge the impact that slavery had and continues to have on our African American friends and family who were born here. It's different. It's a different experience than what we have in the Caribbean. In the Caribbean, it's, you know, if you know Mr. So and so, even if you're not a native, but you're good friends with them, you went to school with them, you might have a leg up because you have someone in your corner to help you. You come here and it's dog eat dog. Nobody cares.
Nobody
And
cares.
it's
Yep.
up to you to decide to make a change. So when I make a decision on my job as a leader, I have to decide, okay, can I work with X, Y, and Z? And if there's a black person that's presented to me in an interview, do I see any qualities based on the questions that I'm asking that I see I could develop this person? Whereas I'm like, yeah, these qualities that you're displaying, but we have to look for that in our people and not discredit them immediately. So what you're here does the person's here doesn't fit that image. Doesn't matter. They're black. Listen to what they're saying and don't look at the image. Don't act like you're white and they're black and you're basing it off of that. Because when we walk out the door, doesn't matter if I'm from Dominica, doesn't matter if I'm from Benin, it doesn't matter if I'm from Cote d'Ivoire, doesn't matter where I'm from, I'm black.
Yep.
And until I open my mouth and someone hears an accent, then they're like, oh, okay, she might not be from America, but we're black. And we need to treat each other that way. But we also have to take in effect that what we went through in the Caribbean is different from what African Americans went through during slavery.
That's true.
Yeah.
All right, Lucerne, thank you. You have a couple more people trying to get on.
It's
All
all
right,
about
take care, guys.
it's all about the zip
Take
code here,
care.
man.
All right. Gonna let this one other person on.
Speed.
Speed.
Hello, caller. You live, caller.
Go ahead.
So when they start asking us for royalties for that line there, we're not making money yet. Those two.
We own the audio.
Yes,
Yeah.
I.
It's live.
Caller, go ahead.
When they start asking us for royalties for that line there.
Basically, in agreements with the previous caller.
Load on your radio. Load on your radio.
Yeah, caller. Turn on your radio, caller. Turn on your
You
radio.
don't need to hear yourself.
Man, I was like, doesn't listen to Matt, man, my partner.
So I don't know. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, caller. Go ahead, caller.
Yeah. So in agreements with what the previous caller said, coming to America from the Caribbean is very different because how can I say this? Is like it's a different experience because growing up in Dominica, you know, as much as there were, like she said, the Asta fans and those different things, and you still had black people owning things. Like there'd be big name, big people. Like for example, the prime minister of Dominica He's a black man. He's been there for 20 something years now. Not 20 something, but just about 20 years. But when you come up here, it's like it's so different. It's like everything is controlled by a white man, or those different things. The other difference would be is like you have to act differently. Like I never thought to myself that I had to react in a different way because of my skin color back home. Because if they call the police, it would be another black person coming to me, and there would not be that kind of fear that maybe, boy, because I black, they might shoot me. So there's this kind of adjustment that can be kind of a shock to everybody. Like, so I realized that yes, in America we are all viewed as black people, and we should all be part of the movement, and so on. But in terms of identifying as per se like a black person in America, it is very kind of different, because you don't have the same kind of experiences. Like I don't know personally anybody that the police rolled up on in high school and shot. There's so many black people up here in America that they have a brother that got killed, they have a cousin that got killed, somebody was just arrested at school, and for sometimes they may be just going about minding their own business, but they're growing up with somebody old, and they realize how the police treated that person. So it created that kind of tension, even without having their own personal experience. And it is very different for us in the Caribbean. While we might have our own issues with the police, but it is not something that you can equate to just because you're black. And up here it's very different, and it's a big culture shock.
That's a good point.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Thank you for that.
I think
So.
I think the issue is, especially, well, mainly in the United States, I think is the whole, we always seem to refer to people by race. Like you meet a white person from the UK and a black person from UK. What do they call them? A British. Both of them. They are both called British. There's no I've never heard a British white or a British American, But when you come to America, like I feel like
African British.
I've never heard that. I've never heard an African British, or or British African.
We have somebody else trying to get on.
I feel like bring them on, but I feel like here there's always some sort of pulling apart, like always trying to when a person who was born here and lived there for their entire life, they're not an African American. They're an American. That's who they are.
Yes, Philly.
Yeah, there's always
yeah.
Like always trying to
Load on your radio.
Yeah, I didn't. I know I tuned in a little late because I was busy, but I just get in the last gist of the information there. So it's a good discussion to have at a very critical time to have that discussion. From the views I've heard from the different callers, I share that same sentiment in that us coming from the Caribbean, we have a different perspective on the whole race thing. I saw something the other day where a lady was saying that we got off the ship early. Like people in the Caribbean, we had the opportunity to go through independence and go through these things and own things on our own and be able to capitalize on opportunities African Americans were not given the opportunity to. And so a lot of what they face stems from not having those opportunities. And it's very tricky to approach certain people when they don't understand that is the case with these people. And I see it also from a psychological perspective. The trauma many of these people, their generations before them faced, that is a sort of a compounding trauma that these people deal with on a daily basis. And they have to deal with it where a system that's supposed to right that kind of stuff doesn't work in their favor. And so for us to have a view, for us to see it in as they would see it, is difficult for us because we never really experience that type of suppression systematically on the scale that they face it, and it's difficult, very, very difficult.
So let me ask you though. So you think that let's put it this way, like the colorism thing came up, all of these different things came up, but I think that again, while I want us to do for ourselves and help out ourselves, I do acknowledge that yes, the people in power do have to put put things to change things.
Hmm.
But again, part of that, it comes back to us again because
Right.
we impact the people that are in power.
True. We have
I
the
mean,
final decision.
for example, Donald Trump is the president now, and you had a lot of people who voted for Obama, and okay, they were not happy with what Obama did for black people. So guess what they said? Oh, I'm not going to vote. Well,
Right.
you not voting is basically voting for him.
Right.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
So, you factor all of those things, and are we really hurting ourselves with those kind of ways of thinking, or
True.
or do we say, we want to help ourselves, so let's try to see what we can do, and then put the onus on these other people to change it, right? Because now when you put somebody who does look like you, or somebody who has your interests in that seat, then you hold him or her accountable for that, right? But
Right.
if the person's in there and the person has their own ulterior motives, then the person doesn't care what we want, right? Because
You're right.
they're looking out for their own people.
Right. And I think a lot of the pushback that we've seen in the recent years with the 45 being there is more or less, I think in my head, is more or less a last stance, because the statistics show that by 2030 something, the white people will no longer be a majority in this country. And so this is the direction the country is heading in, where we're going to see where, if you look at Congress and you look at these government institution houses, they're ran by a bunch of old people who their time's coming up. It's the only amount of time is before they get out. And I think what's happening is, in the past couple of years, where that built this sort of tension to where now what's happening, it has so the tension broke. And so now people starting to see really what that last stand was about, and people pulling the veil from their eyes now, and they're like, okay, well, we need to fix this and not allow this to continue or to prolong whatever agenda it is these people are pushing. What it's sad though, that we getting to see the stark difference that exists. It's very ugly. A lot of people don't like to see it, and a lot of people will complain about it, but that is what's happening. I believe that's what's happening, and we have to push in a way, like you said. We have to go out there and continue to push to make these people be accountable and do what we need them to do.
All right, man. Thanks for coming on. We have one other person coming on.
Yeah, man. Good job, guys.
Thanks, man.
All right, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
All right, man. All right, one more person, and then we're gonna wrap it up. I think we've had a good conversation so far. We're gonna have one of our good friends here come on and give his opinion. So let's see what he has to say. And if he's talking nonsense, I'm gonna tell him he's talking nonsense. Okay, I'm just like,
yeah, man.
Caller, you're live. Caller, go ahead.
You talking about me, sir?
Caller, go ahead, caller.
All right.
Go ahead.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for this very interesting discussion. I moved here in 2008. I lived 21 years of my life in Dominica, and I never once thought about my skin color. Never once. And then I moved here, and thankfully I moved to a predominantly black neighborhood in Newark, New Jersey, where things were very, very different in terms of how I saw black people here treat one another, and how they were seen or portrayed, just in general. you know. And then I remember once having a conversation with a couple of friends of mine from school, and I feel like at that time I made an ignorant statement saying that, oh, why can't we? Well, I guess why can't I separated myself from Black Americans? Why can't they do things differently, or why can't they act a certain way? You know, because I was brought up a certain way, and the way that I figured that the way that they were acting were causing them to be treated a certain way. You know, and then the longer I stayed here, like I moved to Massachusetts, predominantly white neighborhood. I worked with a company, and I was the only Black man there, right? And I saw the difference between neighborhoods, right? Um, my job had me traveling, so like I would go from one neighborhood to another, and then you would go 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes, right? And then just the difference between how well the streets are paved, right, was ridiculous, right? And then the more and more that these instances of clear and blatant racism, I guess, between police and us, the Black people, you know, has made me realize that, and made me even fear, you know, just no, I really, really do have to pay more attention to my surroundings as a Black man. You know, I am now afraid that I may just be walking down the street, you know, and be targeted because of my skin color. That is something that we as Caribbean people were ignorant to. And it was a blessing that was, in my opinion, overlooked, you know? So I feel like now that we live here in America, we also need to educate ourselves more into why things are the way they are. And yes, I'll definitely listen to that podcast. And any other literature that anybody else has to share, please send it. Because I feel like the more we educate ourselves on the plight of the Black man in America, and the more that we educate ourselves on the system that has made things the way they are, and how we can change the system, then the movement will continue, you know, because after Philando Castile, you know, there was outrage, there were riots, and then it all just died down and things went back to normal, right? And that's one thing that I'm scared of now, because yes, the movement is worldwide, but I hope that it results in some change, you know, because it will die down, people will go back to their daily lives, right? And I just hope that the momentum that it has gathered doesn't just stop until the next occurrence, you know, because something has to change. And that's just my piece.
That's when we'll see who was really with us on this journey, or that's when we'll see who really like a part of the fight. Because it's all well and good for people to take to Instagram and post, and for people to, you know, to say, well, you know, we with you guys, we care, whatnot. But when time comes to, what Rihanna say, when time comes to pull up, to really pull up and say
Yeah.
like, listen, this shit not right. When time comes for you to say, listen, don't you doing like that? Not because he black. Give him on his promotion. He deserve that shit. When time to come to say that, will you pull up? Like, will the white people around us pull up? Will they say, listen, for too long we've been doing this shit. Like, we're not gonna let this kind of stuff happen no more. When people stop like pretending and really start doing shit, that's when we'll know if people were pretending now, or if they were, you know, if they were really, really with us.
Yep.
We're not hearing you.
Dwayne, you're still muted though.
Oh man, I'm muted. I'm sorry. I just pulled a shift there. So one last point, one, one last point I'm gonna make, right, is this. I've heard on numerous occasions that people feel that a lot of people feel that, you know, hold on one second. One point I've heard is that um for instance, like I spoke about people being in high positions and giving people jobs and all that. Let's not get it twisted. I don't want people to get jobs just because they're black. If people are qualified to do the job, then they should get the job. However, if you do get the job because you're black, don't say, well, I feel like I shouldn't have gotten it. No, bro. You get it. Now it's time for you to just do the job. That's it. Do the
Take it
job,
and run with it.
take it and run with it. Don't think, well, I got it because I'm black. Okay, so what? You get it because you're black. So what? Like I say, there are people of all so many other cultures and races who end up in jobs that they're not qualified for, that they don't know how to do. But guess what? They learn it. Some of them don't do the job properly, but guess what? They're still in the job anyway. So it is what it is. Let's take what we can get and let's try to help the people that we can help. And I think if we try to look at individuals, like individually, what we can do to help the people around us, then all that does is strengthen us as a people, and that will help us ultimately moving forward. And that's it.
Yep. And
Thank you, gentlemen.
all right, man. Take care.
All right,
Thank
man.
you.
Thank you.
And in closing, I'm gonna read something which is this little paragraph that we had on the graphic for this special episode. And it says, "We are black men. We build. We do not tear down other black men. We have felt the pain of being torn down, and we have decided we will be deliberate about building others. All too often, we men find it easier to criticize each other instead of building each other up. With all the negativity, going around, let's do something positive." And I think we as Caribbean people, yes, we are black, but we come from a totally different black environment. I think more than ever before, it is important that we lend our ear, that we lend our voice to to what's happening here right now. Because at the end of the day, we are black. We come from somewhere where we own and we don't have to ask. And I think we now have to teach our black brothers and sisters, our black American brothers and sisters. And I'm gonna vow from today to stop saying African American. But and I think this is our contribution to what's happening right now, even as people who moved to the United States. And that being said, I would like to thank everybody tuned in, who tuned in today. This is not our regular day. This is not we had no intentions on going this long, but it's a very important conversation that we need to have. And all the callers who participated, we would like to say thank you. To all the women on there, we would like to say thank you for supporting black people, and more so, thank you for supporting us black men. And next week, Wednesday, we will have Mr. Felix Augustine Jr., which is one of our popular TV personalities from back home who eventually moved to the United States. He will be on with us from 8 o'clock right here on Talk the Ting. And if you have any questions, you can go ahead and drop us a comment. Any question you have, drop it in our inbox, and we will definitely look at it and most likely add it to our question list for Mr. Augustine. So thank you again for viewing. Thank you, Mr. Rajiv Wallace, for joining us. We appreciate you today. And I think this is something that we might do ever so often, on a off night, come and have a different spin on Talk the Ting. So thank you very
Fine.
much. Say that again.
An open line.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you call an open line, where you, the
Caller,
guest,
you live.
can actually join us on the call, whether you want your video or your face to show or you don't, but you can join us and let's have a conversation. Thank you very much, everybody, again. And we look forward to you guys joining us on Wednesday with Mr. Felix Augustine Jr. for another informative conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.